Alright, match 3 with Dimir teachings. Hoping it's going to be faster than match 2, but still in our favor. We have a 1-lander, and we're on the play. If we draw exactly island, we're doing great. But we definitely can't count on that. Mulligan. This hand is better, since we can actually make land drops. Invenkar's Justice is nice versus a variety of decks. But I think I'm going to put it on the bottom regardless. We have a kill spell. If we just draw one more kill spell, that's enough to buy us some time. I'd rather see some counter magic. Dismal Backwater. Alright, well, we might be set up for another long game if this is Dimir Teachings mirror match. Or if this is the person that we just played against. I really hope it's not. I'm not going to try to resolve a talisman this turn because of counterspell, I guess. Think twice. Okay, so yep, this looks like the Dimir Teachings matchup, but they have Think Twice instead of Accumulated Knowledge. They discard a Remove Soul because they know what's up. They Think Twice again, looking for a land, since they missed their 3rd land drop. And they found it. Alright, we get to Mystical, make them tap out to counter it if they want to. Go get... I'm not sure what, maybe a counter spell if they don't. Counter spell would be good. That way we can make sure Pristine Talisman resolves if they want to try to fight over that for some reason. Really glad that we scried that Invenkar's Justice to the bottom. So in this mirror match, almost none of the cards matter. The only things that matter are who's ahead on cards, in hand, sort of, who's currently got control of basically the board, quote unquote. It's not really the board, it's each person's hand. They're going to try to resolve that right now. Okay. Well, I will counter back. I'll counter, they'll counter back. And then eventually I'll take it off the table with Capsize. See what they mill. Doomblade Prohibit. I'll do this now before they're able to untap and counter this. Go get a counter spell. And plan on trying to capsize the curse with counterspell back up. I need to hit an untapped land to do that, though. Which I did not. They're going to think twice. So as I was saying, the only thing that matters is who's ahead on cards in hand and who's ahead on cards in library, who's going to deck themselves first if nothing changes. You could potentially kill the opponent with damage, but it's almost always decking in this mirror match, at least in game 1. Accumulated Knowledge is probably fine here if I don't hit an untapped land. Opponent's discarding 2 cards to hand size. Invenkar's Justice and Crypt Recursion, which makes sense. I don't want to discard a hand size though, so I will just pass the turn without playing Accumulated Knowledge yet. I'm going to let Think Twice's resolve for days. I want our opponent to get ahead on, well, behind on cards in library so that they have the initiative. Alright, can I afford to cast another one of these? I don't think I can. Alright, so let's wait till our opponent's turn. We're going to have to discard a hand size as well. So basically the question is who's going to deck themselves at any given moment. And since our opponent was able to stick an early curse when we had our guard down, the answer is currently them. And not until now have we been able to capsize with counterspell backup. Although by this point our opponent very, very likely has 2 counterspells in hand. And then we're basically just going to lose. Because then we have no way to get the curse off the table. So we would have to find our curse and somehow make our opponent deck themselves faster, which if they refuse to draw extra cards is not going to happen. So our opponent does decide to counter. We are forced to counter back, and then if they counter again, we just lose. And we can concede. Okay, they're going to capsize their own curse to make our capsize go to the graveyard as well. So they want to trade capsizes here. Opponent discards another Evankar's Justice. And we will pass the turn with Mystical Teachings and Accumulated Knowledge up. And also Counterspell. So we very much want to find our curse and resolve it as quickly as possible. But we don't want to deck ourselves to do it. I think we have to Accumulated Knowledge here. Bunch of junk. Mystical Teachings. So I will go find a counterspell, I suppose. The reasoning here is if I go get another mystical teaching, if I go get another accumulated knowledge and I draw again, then even when I find my curse, it might not be enough. Because I want our opponent's going to mystical. I want to be able to resolve curse, protect our curse, and also stop our opponent's curse, which is quite a lot of things. Opponent gets a counterspell. So we know they have curse and counterspell in hand. I suppose I can do that just in case it matters. And force our opponent to eventually deal with his Evankar's Justice. They don't have to do it anytime soon. And if they resolve a Pristine Talisman of their own, they don't have to do it ever. Counterspell, okay. So they're on Counterspell, Counterspell, Curse. There's their Pristine Talisman. I'm going to fight over this just to make them fight over the Evankar's Justice. To stint them on mana. Exclude, okay. So we're going to keep on Evankar's Justicing. Eventually our opponent's going to have to deal with it in about 8 turns or less. And because their hand has 2 counterspells in it, they're going to get to resolve their curse. Going to have a way to pick it up again, and then we get to concede. Yep, okay. And that's the whites for us. Alright, and we will concede. So against the mirror match, we want to sideboard almost everything. We want our Anglers and our Mold Drifters and our Stormbow guys, I think. We want our Negates and our Dispels and our Duress. And we want to sideboard out a ton of removal. And if our opponent does the same thing, we might be a little bit light on removal. But that's okay, because hopefully they will be too in that case. So I'm trying to keep the stuff that we do leave in at least kills Gurmag Angler. That's the goal. Innocent Blood, Devour Flesh, Chainer's Edict, and Murder. We still have 2 more cuts to make. I think that's going to be the excludes. If our opponent does bring them in, we might not have exclude up at the right time. It's not likely to be good. Mind Games could be an interesting card. Force our opponent to counter something of ours. We don't really need the Pristine Talisman if we're not going to do the Evankar's Justice trick. Although our opponent might be able to do the trick if we don't have any talismans of our own. And I think I'll run it like this. Alright, we get to be on the play. We drew an Innocent Blood, which is not great. We don't have Counterspell mana, which is also not great, so I think I'm going to mulligan. Well, this hand is even worse, because we have 2 Edicts. But I suppose if our opponent tries for a quick Angler, it could be okay. I don't want to go down to 5. Innocent Blood, get all the way out of here. I could cycle this Sandbar, but I'm probably going to need the mana, so I'll play it. Our opponent leads with a Relic, which is great for them, because now they can just tap it once a turn and keep our graveyard under control. We'll resolve this instead of holding up a negate to develop our mana. And they have their own talisman. Alright, pass the turn. So we could throw away Mystical Teachings here if we wanted to. Just to try to go get something. This makes our accumulated knowledges very bad because the Relic is online. What can I do here that's anywhere near good? I guess Mind Games could be a must counter potentially, since we can Mind Games their bounce land on their upkeep. I do not have high hopes for this match. They got their graveyard hate down and we do not have any of our own, unfortunately. Mystical, okay. I'll negate that. Now we have protection from the Relic for 1 turn, so we can accumulate a knowledge and potentially draw another one and get to draw 2 off of it. Alright. Get to pass. Our opponent probably flashes back Teachings here. And I suppose we negate it again instead of Mind Gamesing again. So the way this works is our opponent has full reign over their graveyard, so all their Mystical Teachings activate twice, and all of ours activate once, which is a huge deal. We also have a mulligan, plus we drew the removal half of our deck, unfortunately. Yeah, I think this game is basically over before it has started. Opponent Mysticals for Mystical just to get ahead. And I'm going to F6 a lot to hopefully save us all some time. Mole Drifter, okay. Our opponent now gets to Mystical for Counterspell if they don't already have one in hand. Alright, flashback Mystical. Remove Soul, and remove the Mole Drifter Soul. And at this point, I generally don't like to concede before the game is over, especially not when I'm recording, but the game is virtually over now. Our opponent has 2 active Pristine Talismans, which means killing them with damage is going to take forever. They have an active Relic, which means we can't use our graveyard or any of our flashback spells, and they get to still use theirs, since we don't have anything to fight back with. They have more mana than us. We have 3 mulligans in hand. Even if our opponent brought in creatures, they're probably going to have counter magic to back it up since we know they have a Mystical in hand. And this game is basically over at this point. Generally, you don't have mirror matches of this deck that are such a shutout so early on, but the mulligan plus the fact that we left in removal and they didn't play creatures and we drew a bunch of removal doesn't work out well for us. Alright, so we're down a game. and we're on to match 4.